Well, welcome everybody to my webinar. I'm super excited to have everybody here and I'm excited to do this. Thank you, We Are Her, Stevie from We Are Her, for inviting me to do this. I'm super excited. I have my friend and she's on my team of Candle in the Dark Room here as well. And she will just be kind of helping me, keep me going and help me answer questions and everything else. So I'm just gonna give it a couple more minutes and then a couple more seconds and then we will start. Like I said, in the comment box, if you guys have anything while we're going, go ahead and write it there. Questions and comments like for about the story and everything I'm about to teach will be the last 10-15 minutes. Okay. I'm gonna take a quick drink of my water before I start. Okay, well, I think we're gonna get started. So I'm gonna be sharing my screen. I have, let's see. Okay, so I put this slideshow together for you all. So just kind of, if you want to take notes, screenshot, whatever it is that you need to do. How do you do that? Whatever it is that you need to do. Oh, there you go. I don't know if you can do that. Well, I don't think you can, but it's okay. Okay, so to start, like we have been posting and what this whole webinar is specifically going to be about is the effects that trauma has on our mental health and on our bodies. I personally believe and know and seen from experience that it 100% does affect our mental health and our bodies. So also I do have a couple notes here that I'll kind of just be keeping me on to help me keep me on track. But why I'm here to begin with. So the reason I'm here today is to teach you all about trauma and how much that it can impact our mental health and our physical health. I mean, like I said before, I've seen it, I've experienced it. So I definitely think it's important for everyone to be trauma informed. I'm here from a professional level. I've worked over 10 years in the mental health trauma field, and I have worked with big major hospitals in the state of Utah. So I have a lot of experience both professionally, as well as being a survivor of childhood trauma. So I, am able to come from both angles and give you advice and all of that from both angles. Also, I believe it's important for everyone to know the impact that trauma has, both temporarily and permanently, because again, I think that everybody goes through some type of trauma, whether it's something small, whether it's a one-time thing, whether it's a whole 10-year ordeal, whatever it is. I think everyone has had trauma in their life. And I don't think that people understand or realize the impact that it has on them. So what I want you to learn today is, like I said, I want you to be trauma informed for not only yourself as a victim and or as a loved one of a victim, with knowledge of what to look for and how to get the right help. Again, that is just something that I believe is super, super important. I will be telling my story, so I'm going to open this up again. How do I do that? Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so I'm gonna open this back up again. I'm gonna just start by telling you guys a little bit about myself and, kind of how I got to where I am today and the survivor that I got. Press the present button on the right corner. Oh, okay. So I am, as like I said, a survivor of childhood trauma. When I was growing up, when I was little, my parents got divorced when I was around 6 years old. Their relationship was very toxic, not very healthy, and so I saw a lot of things at a very young age that I probably shouldn't have, that most 6-year-olds don't. So that already was very traumatic. My parents, like I said, ended up getting divorced when I was 6, and my mom remarried when I was around 7 years old. I met my stepdad, and he was, honestly just a normal guy. I don't remember anything like red flags or anything major to think that he had any type of issues. Only thing I remember is having a bad feeling for some reason. I don't know what it was, always feeling a little unsettled with him. And so, but nothing actually happened. But I do remember locking him out one time when I was around 7 years old, and just left him outside while I watched Lion King. So I don't know, like I said, even though nothing had happened yet, I always kind of felt like something was off. Around 8 years old, is when the molestation started. I cannot tell you the first time it started. I will go into that more later, but I know it started around 8 years old, or for sure during 8 years old. And like I said, it kind of started just with the typical molestation, and then it went, unfortunately, it progressed very quickly to full child rape and sexual abuse. I was physically abused by him, sexually abused by him, as well as mentally. He would threaten me with objects, with knives, tell me he would bury my family alive, my brothers, all of those type of things, all of the typical things that perpetrators tell their victims. And he was a very intimidating person. I was 8 years old. I was a child. So of course I believed everything he said he would do, that he would do it. Like I said, it went on for a really long time. I had, he punched me so hard, broke my ribs. He would put a pillow over my face. He would do a lot of different things. My mom, people always ask, like, how did she not know? And my mom was the one who kind of held us all together. He would lie and say he was working, but he would pawn things. He would do drugs, alcohol, things like that. So my mom's the one who worked 3 jobs to just keep food on our table and a roof over our head. So she worked a lot. When she wasn't at work, if she saw a bruise or saw something that like made her question me, I would just say, oh, well, I was outside, or I was playing at the playground or something, and I fell and hit my rib, and that's why it's bruised, or things like that. So I did tell her a lie, but she never really pushed it. She just kind of was like, okay, fine. I believe you, and never really asked me anything else. So yeah, again, that went on for a really long time. I would be checked out of school, he would tell my teachers and principal or whatever that I had doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, do whatever he needed to do to get me alone. That happened all the way until I was 15 years old. At 15 years old, one night he tried to come in my bedroom, and I remember just like freezing and thinking in my head, like, I can't go through this anymore. About 2 weeks prior to that, I had tried hanging myself. I went to school and had a bruise, like rope burn around my neck. And then I was a cutter. I had developed an eating disorder since 7th grade. I had been cutting for at least a couple of years, and I would, smoke weed, take Percocets, Loratabs, things like that. So I was very like self-destructing. And again, I feel like nobody really asked me why. Everyone saw what was happening, but the result that I got from everybody was that I was being a drama queen. Oh, Desi's just being dramatic. Or, oh, she's just a negative attention seeking, whatever the situation was, which in hindsight I was, but it was because I was a cry for help. I was negative attention seeking. I was, doing things to get attention, maybe not on purpose, but that's what I was doing because I was trying to call for help without actually saying the words. So luckily I had a teacher who helped me kind of through the whole thing. She helped me one time call the suicide hotline. She is the one who called my mom when she saw the rope burns, a lot of different things. I remember she just would kind of just help walk me through it, sit there with it while I would cry. I remember a couple of times she asked me like, what's going on? And I just remembered, like, I can't tell you. That's the only thing I could say. And so one night when like I said, when I was 15, he was trying to come in my room, and I just had it and I was just done. And so I went to school, went to that same teacher, and basically just told her everything. Can't tell you exactly what I said. I really have those like next few days blacked out. But I did tell her. She went to the school counselor, told the school counselor, and the school counselor told her that Desi was just being dramatic again. Did not want to report it. And luckily my teacher was, adamant to report it. She said, that's not our job. It's not our job to decide whether this is true or not. So we need to do what we're supposed to do and report it. Thank God she did. And I, went through the whole process. I went to court, tried to testify, was not able to emotionally. I had a mental breakdown. I was cutting really bad at the home. I was just mentally so messed up at this point. I think I remember having the shame of, I just destroyed our entire lives. We had just built a house. In my head, I remember thinking like, I took my mom's husband away. I took my brother's dad away. and we lost our house. Like we've lost everything because of my decision to tell. And in that moment, I remember just like having so much shame and guilt about destroying our family. And honestly, I don't remember anyone saying like, it's okay. It's okay that you came out. It's okay that you told. Yes, there's consequences to what happened, and you lose things, whatever. If I would have had one person tell me that, especially in my family, one person tell me that it was okay, then I feel like that would have helped so much. Again, nothing towards my family. Obviously they had no idea how to react to this. They did the best they could, but that definitely would have helped. So yeah, I ended up, once he was sentenced, he ended up being sentenced to 3 to life, which if you don't know, that is minimum of 3 years and maximum of life. He ended up only serving 5 years for what he did to me. But he ended up getting another 5 years because he actually got an attempted murder charge on his cellmate. And so he was in there for a total of 10 years. After I reported him, I ended up, my mom, my relationship was not good. Like I said, my eating disorder was the worst it had ever been. I mean, I was just a mess. And so I remember going home, my mom and I had a big blowout, and I actually ran away. I ended up going to my real dad's house and telling him like, hey, I need help. Like either you help me or I'm going to die. Like I already know, like I had already attempted suicide like 3 times. And I just knew that if I didn't get help, I would be dead. And so they actually put me in a residential treatment program here in Utah. I was a resident there for almost exactly 2 years. I actually went in at 15 and then got out at 17, right before my 18th birthday. So I, during the process of rehab is where this whole mental health thing comes in. I will get into this a little bit in a few minutes. I'm going to go back to the slide and then I will come back to the mental health part. So give me just a second. What did you say? Oh, present. There we go. Okay. We are right here. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of information about the physical effects of trauma. These are things that have affected me. So when I was 15, after I reported him, I actually ended up being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was the first one in my family. I had a great grandma who had type 2 diabetes, but no one had ever had type 1. I have a ton of cousins, I have 3 brothers and 1 sister, and I got diagnosed at 15. My little brother, who is the son of my old stepfather, was diagnosed at age 8. So both of us ended up getting diagnosed with diabetes. I believe, I held it in for several years of this, I had to become a really good liar and really good at hiding everything because I was scared that, the truth would come out. My dad was a detective and that was what he did. And so I pushed my dad away because I didn't want him to figure out what was happening at my house. And so, like I said, diabetes, I believe once I released and told what happened, that is how my body released all the trauma that had been holding in internally. So yeah, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, chronic migraines. I have dealt with chronic migraines, literally since as long as I can remember. I remember being like 12 years old and sitting in a dark room, just like crying with ice on my head, just the worst migraines. And even to this day, it's funny because like Tamika and Beth all text and be like, I've got a bad headache today. And they both know like I've had a really stressful week. That's how my body still reacts. If I am really stressed out, I tend to get really bad like neck aches, and then they result into really bad migraines. Like I said before, I developed an eating disorder around 7th grade. Bulimia was my eating disorder of choice. I would kind of go back and forth between bulimia and anorexia, but bulimia was mostly my main thing. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. A lot of people don't understand why a lot of people who've been through trauma have eating disorders. When you have been through trauma, and especially childhood trauma, your life is completely out of your control. Nothing you do from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed, nothing's in your control. You're being controlled by your perpetrator. You're being controlled by your parents, your kid. You're being controlled by teachers. You're being controlled by, everything. And so what is the one thing I had control over my life? was what I ate, how much I ate, what I chose not to eat, and how much I decided to get rid of. So that was something that was really important for me to control. Also, I remember the thought as being a victim of abuse is if I make myself disgusting and I don't look cute and I don't look good, then maybe he won't want anything to do with me. Obviously that was not the case, but in my head as a young child, that's what I thought. Hair loss. I literally remember going to the bathroom and brushing my hair, and I, have pretty long hair. It's kind of shorter right now, but I had, always had long hair, and I would just brush it. And still to this day, when I brush my hair, I feel like way more than most people do. I have to clean my brush at least a couple times a week. Hair loss during the traumatic part of my life, like after I told about him and I was in rehab, I have pictures and I have literally like bald spots, like right here on both sides of my hair. I also think I would pick at it a lot too. It was definitely an anxiety, like coping mechanism. But I do definitely think that hair loss is a huge, huge thing. I think it has to do with hormones. Last thing is how it's affected me, cancer. So my dad, like I told you guys, was a detective here in Utah, and he was in charge of sex crime cases. Those big important cases, and when he was little and growing up, he was actually sexually and physically abused. And, he didn't talk much about it, but he was, and we had talked about it. And it was something he always wanted to share, but never got around to because he never went to therapy. He never, ever dealt with his trauma. And then he became an adult, got married, got in a really bad, unhealthy relationship, then became a detective or cop at first, and then a detective, and then saw more trauma. So my dad had literally seen trauma for as long as he can remember. And he retired a couple of years ago, and about 2 to 3 years, I think, after he retired, it was December of 2018, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. First person in our family, again, we had never really heard of anybody we haven't really ever lost anyone to cancer. So it took us all by surprise, and he was doing okay. And then all of a sudden it just took him, and he actually just passed away in February, the end of February. So I've talked to my stepmom about this, and I've talked to my mom and everyone who, has known him for his whole life, and him not ever dealing with his trauma, I think 100% has to do with why his cancer manifested. He never dealt with it. He held it in internally. And where do you hold it internally? In your, the pit of your stomach. Where did he get cancer? In the pit of his stomach. And so again, this is the effects that I know it has on people's bodies. Also, it has other types of cancers. I talked to a psychiatrist that I've interviewed for my podcast, and he said he saw a 27-year-old girl after she had been gang raped. She went into complete liver failure, had no signs prior, nothing, and her liver was completely failing. So again, things that you don't even realize. Digestive issues, have trouble eating, you get major stomach pain. Again, that was my dad. He always would say he had stomach aches on and off his whole life, really sensitive stomach, things like that. Organ failure, the liver failure. Like I said, that girl who she had her liver fail and she's 27 years old. Also other organs. Also, if you deal with anxiety, the feeling of the tightening of the chest, rapid heartbeat. Trauma affects your hormones. Like I said, I know my hormones, I started my period when I was 10 because of my trauma, and it made my hormones since then just kind of be out of whack. And so my hormones have always been off. And then as well as the nervous system. So those are the physical effects. The mental health effects, let me go, was that the right one? Yes. The mental health effects, this is where I will continue my story. First, I will talk about what I've seen, and what I know is actually something that's very common in mental health that is affected by trauma. So anxiety disorders, panic disorders. If you have any type of trauma, how that anxiety will just kick in by the smell of something. You see something to trigger anything. Mood disorders such as depression, borderline personality disorder, anything like that. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, DID, which is, dissociation identity disorder. I forgot for a second. But yes, dissociation identity disorder, which can be two different things. It can be where people get multiple personalities, and that's how their body has dealt with childhood trauma or trauma in general. And so I don't know if any of you have ever seen that Oprah interviewed this woman about quite a few years ago, and she had DID, and she had 97 personalities, some male, some female. It's crazy. And some of them had access to her memories of being traumatized and being, raped and all those things. And her other personalities had no idea what they were talking about and had no memory of that. So also the other part of DID is what I have. And I will go into that in just a few minutes. The next thing is body dysmorphia. Again, eating disorders. Thinking that you are disgusting and looking yourself in the mirror and completely not seeing what everyone else sees. That is a very common symptom of someone who's dealt with trauma. Emotional disconnection. If you have been through trauma, it's really hard for you to become emotionally invested with someone, to be open with someone, to trust someone. Your guards are up 100%. And so that affects a lot of different things. Addiction tendencies, obviously drugs, alcohol, even, and I believe like cutting, things like that, eating disorders, that urge, that adrenaline that, eating disorder might give you in the moment, or that adrenaline that cutting might give you at the moment. It gives you seek that, that feeling of satisfaction in those really unhealthy coping mechanisms. So yeah, addiction tendencies I think are huge. And then also bipolar, which kind of has to do with mood disorders, but that is an important one because people will have no signs of bipolar until all of a sudden they're traumatized and it surfaces. So I think that's really important to know. So back to this, I guess I'll talk to you more about this one. With DID, like I said, you can have multiple personalities, but you can also have which is what I had. So when I was in rehab, I had gotten there at 15. I was diagnosed with PTSD, major depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder. They were trying to decide with bipolar. You name it, and they thought I had it. I was on literally a freezer bag of medications, like full of different types of, antipsychotics and things like that. And what ended up happening was one day I was in therapy, and I don't know if any of you ever saw That's So Raven on Disney Channel. I always explain it where when she has her vision, she kind of like opens her eyes and stares off into space. That is how I've been told my body I react to when I'm about to disassociate. So I'll be sitting there and all of a sudden I'll go off into a zone and all of a sudden I'm gone. But then I come back and I'm 8 years old. So I would go back to anywhere between 8 and 15. Most of my reoccurring moments were between 8 and 10, I think, because those are when I was obviously the youngest, and those were probably the most traumatic. I hadn't become numb to what was happening yet. And so I would go back to being 8 years old, and I would throw myself on the ground, and I would turn blue as if someone knocked the wind out of me. I would get bruises on my wrists. I would come out of it and I would have vaginal pain. I would have stomach pain. It's the craziest thing. And basically what my therapist said would happen is I would completely reenact an incident of abuse and a rape that was happening in that moment. And so that is how my trauma brain, which I'll go into that again in a minute, but our trauma brain, I kind of picture it like a house. There's all these different rooms, and one of my rooms is where I keep all my trauma, and it's locked away. And then the only time it comes out is when my disassociation kicks in. And basically it's where I go into that one room, I stay in that room for a while, deal with the memories, deal with the flashbacks, deal with everything that I can remember. And then I leave the room, and then I'm back. And so sometimes, I would be disassociated for 3-4 hours at a time. All of a sudden I would come out and people would be around me and I would just have lost chunks of my day. I would have no recollection of what happened, how it happened. I don't know what triggered it. It just would 100% happen on its own when it wanted to. That ended up being a huge part of why I was there for 2 years. I couldn't go home. They didn't know if my mom could handle my dissociation incidents or episodes, I guess. And so I remember them sitting my mom down, and she always tells me, they literally sat her down and said, Desi will be mentally gone the rest of her life. She will be in a mental hospital the rest of her life. She will be on medication, antipsychotics the rest of her life, and she will never be normal. I wasn't supposed to have kids. I wasn't supposed to be married. I wasn't supposed to be able to drive a car. I wasn't supposed to do anything that I do today because of my traumatic brain that I was dealing with and all of these mental health issues I had because of my trauma. So yeah, DID has been a huge part of my life. It is something that is only, I believe, 2% of people have DID. It is not a very common thing. Most people that do have DID are people that have been in war, where they think that they see guns, hear guns, bombs, things like that. So you have to be pretty traumatized to have DID, unfortunately. It is a very, very hard disease to deal with. Luckily, for me, I've gotten it under control. I haven't had one for a couple of years, but also it's something that I might deal with for the rest of my life. If it's triggered, it will happen. I luckily, like I said, have been able to deal with it, but you never know if something's going to trigger that. I am going to, okay. I'm going to go back to the slide where I can see you guys really quick, just because, where to go? Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. I'm just checking if anyone can see the slides. I can't see your slides if you're showing the presentation. Okay, can anybody else see them? I guess I should probably know that because it says I'm sharing it. Let me try this. So I can't go to present. Let's see, sorry, I'm just checking. Okay, so if you guys did not see that, I'll go back to here really quick. This is where I went through the list of the physical effects that trauma has on the body. And then here is the mental that I went through just now. Oops. So yeah, anxiety disorders, mood disorders, PTSD, DID, body dysmorphia, emotional disconnection, addiction tendencies, and bipolar. So yeah, like I said, DID is probably the way I actually don't have bipolar or borderline personality disorder. With DID, they basically, the way they've explained it to me is that DID sums up all of those into one. So I obviously have like mood swings because I'm fine, I'll be fine, and all of a sudden I dissociate and I'm freaking out. Borderline personality disorder, that's a very common thing for people with DID. We pull people in, want people to want to be connected to people, want that attention, things like that. But then as soon as someone gets too far, we push them away. And I think that's a defense mechanism for us. We're very guarded and are very careful to not get hurt again. So we have extra guards up than most people. Let's see. How do you open this? I don't know. Oh, okay. Okay. So to go a little bit more into how the brain works when it comes to trauma. So we have 3 different types of brains, basically, 3 different parts of our brain. So we have the brain stem, and then we have, which is actually the primitive brain. So the primitive brain, it's the developmental trauma. So it's somatic sensory brain. It is where our sleep is deprived, impulsive and pervasive anxiety, flashbacks to state of fear, and heart rate difficulties. So whenever we are having anxiety attacks or we're having a flashback because someone just scared us and panicked us, that is where our primitive brain kicks in. And that is where it all comes from. It keeps kind of like, the way I explain it is, it kind of like, that's what like keeps you up at night with your anxiety. And like when your brain is racing all night, it's because your brain stem is basically going, all your anxieties that you had from the day or whatever's going on. Your limbic brain, your trauma brain. So like I said before, those of us in the clinical field, professional field, we use this term a lot. This person has trauma brain. So trauma brain, the developmental trauma, which has to do with attachment, emotional regulation, and behavior regulation. So if somebody has trauma brain, they are clingy, oppositional, rejecting, recreating traumatic situations, DID, self-harm, dead-end emotions like numbness, emptiness, low mood. Basically I would like always joke and be like, I'm dead inside, just like our emotions. We don't have, if we're in that emotional brain, we're basically have no emotion at that moment. We've learned to numb ourselves. Or it does the opposite effect where we snap and all of a sudden we're heightened, we have heightened emotions, which are anger, fear, rage, all of that. That is kind of, the limbic brain is right in the middle. It's right here. It goes up through your neck and it goes up to the middle of your head. And that is where we hold all of our trauma. That's the room that my brain, to cope and to keep me sane and to keep me going in life, kept my trauma. It kept it in that room and kept it closed until I was in a safe place, which was therapy, which was, rehab. Then that's when it would open the door and release some of that trauma. And then the third one is the cortical brain. So it's the developmental brain, self-esteem, disassociation, cognitive problems, etc. So obviously the limbic brain has to do with disassociation, I can't talk, disassociation, but also the cortical brain is what makes it turn on. So it is where the information processing is impaired, executive dysfunction, so problems planning, organizing, things like that. A lot of us who have been through trauma always like say, I'm ADD, like I can't focus. And that is a lot where I struggle. I have to have notes. I have to kind of stay on track with what I'm saying and doing, because it's like a squirrel, like, oh, wait, I forgot. I'm talking about this. And I very easily can jump back and forth between different situations or whatever, different thoughts. Inadequate problem solving, remember and recalling info. So because of my disassociation, I cannot remember, like I remember very, very, very little, like maybe a handful of memories from age 10 and younger. Like anything younger than that, I have no memory of. So to kind of go back to this, my cortical brain, so when I went to court and had to testify against my stepfather, I actually had told the court that I had only been abused from age 10 to 15. I had no memory of when it started. I couldn't remember the first time it started, nothing. The only way I have figured out and they have figured out when my abuse started was from my disassociation episodes. At some point, every single time I would disassociate, they would say, what's your name? How old are you? Sometimes I would be 12. Sometimes, you could always tell by my age too, by the way I acted, I guess. Like if I was 13 or 12, I had obviously a teenage attitude. Or if I was 8, I was sitting in a corner crying for my mom. So they asked me, how old are you? And that's where I was able to say I was 8 years old. And that's the lowest I ever got with my disassociation. So that is where we're pretty confident that's when it started. Let's see. So identity confusion, disorientation, kind of the same thing as just kind of being really scattered and all over the place. Self-hate, self-blame, worthlessness, helplessness, and self-loathing. Those are huge, huge. Our cortical brain is a huge part of our mental health, because if that is what's triggered, that is where people commit suicide. That is when people want to cut. That is when people have eating disorders. This is the part of the brain that we need to work on when we're having self-esteem issues and trust, all of those things. Let's see. Okay, so other effects from childhood trauma. So I kind of said it a little bit a minute ago, but Cognitive, so trouble learning, comprehending, and concentration. So again, my old teacher, the one who I reported to, I think she's actually on this. She was, the one who would tutor me through school. I struggled through school so much. Before my trauma, I actually went to a private school. And even though I was only, around 7, 8 years old, I was actually super smart. I actually made the honor roll like several times at a private school. I was really, really good. When I was around probably 11 years old, maybe 10, I really started struggling with school. My concentration, I couldn't focus enough to learn. I would read super, super quickly. Like I would read a whole book in like a day, but then you go back and ask me what I just read and I would have no memory of what I read. It was really, really hard for me to comprehend. I had to take like special classes for that and everything. Behavioral, obviously. This is a huge one. And this is one of the things that I want people to really ask questions about. People see kids at, let's say we see a kid at Chick-fil-A and the dad goes and picks him up or the mom goes and picks him up and the child starts freaking out or flinching or, doing something, acting out behavioral wise, kicking, screaming, whatever the situation is. That is when it's important to ask questions. Obviously, you're not going to just go with someone and ask, hey, why is your kid throwing a fit? But if it's somebody that you know and you notice that happens a lot and you notice that they act out a lot and you notice that there's some big major behavioral issues but seem like it's stemming from somewhere else, that is where you come in and you kind of ask a lot of questions. Most of the time there is a root to why that's happening. It's not always trauma, but a lot of times it is. Anyone who actually has been through trauma as a child have all had behavioral issues. Mine, I was very defiant. My mom would say, don't touch that, and I would touch it anyway. Being a teenager, like I was do the complete opposite of what people told me to do. Brain development. So sometimes our brain, if you've been through childhood trauma, some children actually, their brain basically stops growing. So you get basically it's called a small brain, and it's all the trauma has happened. And so your brain doesn't want anything else to basically come in there. And so it stops growing at that point. It completely stops and you struggle with that for the rest of your life. And then in your whole life, you have brain development problems. Next, obviously emotional, can't handle your emotions, can't control your emotions. Like I said, people will joke and say, oh, I have bipolar. Well, a lot of times if you've had childhood trauma, that is the reaction that you're going to have. Somebody says something, you're going to react, especially if you're offended or triggered by it in any way. So about emotions is super hard. Relationship issues. I, for myself, can totally agree with this. I've been married for going on 10 years this year. We've been together for 13. And honestly, a lot of times I'm like, how in the heck is my husband still here with me? Because I had such bad relationship problems. Before I met my husband, I was, after I had come out with everything around 15, I became very sexually active. I remember just kind of thinking, what's the point? Like, I'm already damaged, so what's the point? I'm just going to sleep with whoever, do whatever guys want me to do, and that's just how it's going to be. Which also affects your mental health, by the way. If you're basically just giving yourself to anybody and you've already been through trauma, that causes more trauma. So yeah, definitely relationship issues, because you need to learn to trust people. And again, trauma brain keeps that guarded. We have a 10-foot cement wall that is really, really hard for people to come through. If someone does make it through, like, fortunately my husband did, then that's amazing. But even so, if I'm triggered or anything else, it's very easy for me to kind of be like, oh, wait, I can't trust people. I can't trust people. And I have to remind myself, the work I've done and that I can. So also, again, because I was sleeping around at that young age, a lot of people have commitment issues. They have infidelity issues. They have, needed to be with one partner, all those type of things. I have a friend who has been through childhood trauma, and she is in a polyamorous, is that what it's called? Polyamorous relationship. And it's because she's been through her childhood trauma. And I don't think, obviously other people choose that life, which is totally fine, and that's their choice. But I definitely think a lot of it has to do with trust, and a lot of it has to do with that commitment. She can't commit herself to just one person. And so that's what makes her feel comfortable. Also, if any of you have ever looked into the ACEs study, this is an amazing study where they actually tested on 1,700 or 17,000. I want to say 17,000 people, 17,000 people. And they found that survivors of childhood trauma are up to 5,000%. 5,000. That is a huge, like, that's insane to me. 5,000% more likely to commit suicide, have an eating disorder, and or become drug addicts or alcoholics. Again, the impact that childhood trauma has on your life and trauma in general it blows my mind. Like, people think, oh, it happened when they were little, they don't remember. No, when we are children, that is when we are sponges. We soak everything up. We soak everything we hear, everything we see, we remember, we soak it up. And even if we don't remember, like, intentionally, subconsciously, we remember those things. And so we are triggered by anything like that. So yeah, childhood trauma will literally go through with us for the rest of our lives. And even though it's been 15 years since I've been through my trauma, I am still easily triggered sometimes. And obviously I know how to deal with it now, but don't get me wrong, like, I still am triggered on a regular basis by things. And I believe I will for the rest of my life. The only difference is now I know how to work through it instead of kind of just not doing anything, sweeping it under the rug. Let's see. Tips to manage mental health. So this is important, and I wanted to write this down for you guys because I really want you to screenshot, write this down, take a picture of your screen on your phone, whatever it is that you need to do. These are very important and things that I have done that I know work for mental health. Talk therapy. There is nothing wrong with going to therapy. There is nothing wrong with asking, hey, I think I need to talk to somebody. You could always talk to your support system. Excuse me. You can always talk to your support system, but talking to a therapist is so much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, releasing. Like, it's just, you literally feel the weight off your shoulders. So I believe talk therapy is huge. EMDR. If you have not looked into EMDR or tapping, which that's the next one, these are really, these are kind of new, but they're very, 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 like, what's the word? I can't think today. They are very impactful with when you've been through trauma. So EMDR is where they basically, it's through eye movement, and it helps. So every single time you're remembering a traumatic incident, they go through very small incidents at a time. And then you have to do like eye movement, and basically it rewires your brain and gets rid of the traumatic effect of the trauma. And so you still have the memory, like, it doesn't erase the memory, but it's not as traumatic. It doesn't feel as traumatic. And it gets rid of that anxiety and PTSD that is associated with that memory. So it's amazing. Tapping. There are several different areas for tapping. I'm trying to remember them all. So there's your forehead, there's under your lip, there's your ear, there is, I think it's your hand. There's a lot of them. I have to remember all of them. But look into tapping, meet with the therapist and do tapping. It's one of the most recommended things for anxiety, PTSD, and dissociation disorder. So if I am going into a dissociation episode, my old therapist, I was talking to a couple of years ago, because a couple of my episodes had resurfaced when my stepdad was released from prison. And she was like, told me to try this tapping, and I started doing it. And it's been a minute since I've done it, but like, literally it helped that anxiety calm so much. It made me so I would focus enough on my tapping where I wouldn't disassociate. So it stopped me from having that, episode. I am a trauma healing coach. And so I actually do this with a couple of the girls that I'm talking to, the tapping. One of them I'm going to be teaching next week, because again, it's something that if you're at home, it's something you can do to help ease your anxiety and help calm yourself down, so you're in a safe place and you don't have to worry about disassociating. I just think it's super important. Medication. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. There is nothing wrong with taking medication. Like I said, I left rehab with a freezer bag full of medication when I was 18 years old. I did end up stopping all medications for about 10 years. And then a few years back, I got back onto an antidepressant. I am happy to say I'm on one now. It's the only thing I'm on, but it makes the biggest difference in my life. I tried to get off of it like a year ago. Bad decision. My husband was even like, yeah, I think that helped you a lot more than we even realized. So yeah, don't be ashamed of taking medication. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm also not going to be the first to be like, oh, you're sad, go take an antidepressant. I don't think that either. It's definitely something you need to do research on and talk to the right, psychiatrist and make sure you get on the right things. But definitely if you feel like you have a hormone disbalance or you have some type of, problem with your mental health, there's nothing wrong with going and seeing if medication would be suitable for you. Let's see. Talk about it to someone you trust. Don't hold things in or sweep it under the rug. And I'm going to tell you this from experience as well. I held it in for, so I got out of rehab at 17, met my husband. I'd have nightmares and I'd have a few things here and there, but for the most part, like my mom and I never talked about what happened. My family and I never brought it up. Like it was literally the elephant in the room, but yet no one would say anything. So for years, we all kept this up under the rug. My mom never talked about how she felt about her husband, finding out what her husband had done. My brother had never talked about what it was like being the son of a pedophile, a perpetrator. Until I came out with my podcast this last March. Releasing my podcast this last March was honestly the thing that my family needed, but was also dreading. They, my mom even says, like, I didn't even realize I still had all this until this all came up. And, nobody is like mad or thinks that I shouldn't have done it. They all just didn't realize how much we all were covering up. And even myself, like, when I decided to tell my story, I really was just like, I guess, like, whatever, let's see what happens. But the feeling of releasing my story and afterwards my story being told and running into somebody that I've known for a long time or I just met that has heard it was so relieving to be like, I don't have to hide who I am anymore. Like, this is who I am. This is my story. This is what's made me who I am today. So why am I going to be ashamed of it? It's also not something I go and like, hey, nice to meet you. This is what happened to me, but it is definitely something that I think is important to be out there. I had an episode that was released today of this girl who's never talked about the traumatic incident that happened to her in October of 2018. And she talked about it. And literally she's been texting me since I released it yesterday, just like in tears. Like, I feel so released. Like, I feel so much like freedom in what like releasing this episode gave me. And I don't have to go and release the podcast. You don't have to go do any of that. But what I'm saying is talk about it. Don't keep things swept under the rug, because I promise that snake is going to make its way out and it's going to bite you when you're least expecting it. And that is going to make it 10 times harder to heal and get through it. Talk to a support system, like I said, whoever that is. Eat well. Eating well and putting nutritional things in your body, I believe, is a huge, huge impact on mental health and physical health, obviously. But if I eat like crap, I literally feel so guilty. And don't get me wrong, like, I think everybody should have their days where they, whatever, we're in quarantine, we eat whatever we want, right? But, obviously on a regular basis, you start feeling crummy. You start feeling like heavy and like, blah, you don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to go on a hike. You just kind of want to sit there and watch Lifetime all day. That's what I would want to do. But when I eat healthy and I I'm going to make a smoothie for lunch and I'm going to have a salad for dinner, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to have protein, whatever it is, I feel so much better the next day, like so much lighter, so much energy, like I could take on the world. So yeah, eating well, I think, is huge. Exercising. I never have been a big exerciser. It's always been super hard for me. Until the past couple of years, I really enjoy going to the gym. That's like my me time. I go do my, elliptical or whatever it is I'm doing, my weights, go sit in the sauna, steam room, have that me time. So I definitely think exercising is great. Also, exercising outside, like fresh air, the ocean if you live by the ocean, the mountains if you live in the, by the mountains, anything like that, I think is just so important. Take a break if needed. The reason I say this one is because I have a very hard time with this. As Tamika and Bethany, who both are on my team, know I struggle with this, but it's definitely something that I know that when I ignore this step, I really have a hard time. And it's an emotional roller coaster, and I come crashing hard. Take a break. If you are, especially right now for you moms that are home with your kids, homeschooling, working, all these things, seriously, take a break. It's okay. Don't get mom guilt. Don't feel bad. And if you're not a mom and you're just working your butt off, or you're not a dad, but you're working your butt off for yourself, whatever the situation is, we can all definitely get in the mindset of go, 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 go. And it's okay to stop, breathe, take a minute. Hey, you know what? Mom needs to go out for a little while. Hey, husband, wife, can you take the kids, or can you stay home and cook dinner while I go, or can you handle, whatever it is I needed to do so I can go take a break? Whatever the situation is, it's okay, and don't feel guilty for doing it. That's something, like I said, I really struggle with. And that goes along with self-care. Take a bath, go get a massage, go get a manicure. Again, self-care. I need a manicure. I'm going to do my nails tonight. Actually, I'm going to do them. But yeah, take a break, get your nails done, get your hair done, whatever it is you need to do to feel confident in yourself is huge on mental health. Because honestly, if you're feeling really crappy about yourself, your mental health's not going to feel good. If you're feeling confident and sexy and strong and, all of these positive vibes, then you're going to feel good in your mental health as well. You're not going to have these negative thoughts. So it's a huge circle. Getting enough sleep. Again, something I have really bad insomnia, I was up the past 2 nights until 4:00 in the morning. And last night, I finally told my husband, I need to go to bed. And I went to bed and slept great 10 hours, and it was amazing. But I notice that if I'm not getting enough sleep, mama ain't happy, and it's bad for everybody. Okay. So we all need to make sure we're getting enough sleep. Huge for mental health. If you are sleep deprived, you are not taking care of your mental health. You are going to have a breakdown. It's going to catch up to you, and it ends up affecting you in the long run. So try to sleep. I know the recommended is 8 hours, but even 6 to 8 hours is amazing. For an adult, especially if you're a parent. Try to get that as much as you can. Do things you're passionate about. So I actually interviewed this doctor. His name's Dr. Beal, and he's on my first season. And he was talking, we had a meeting last week, and he talked about this with me. What can I ask him? Give me some tips on what you can do to deal with mental health, your coping skills. And he said, find something you are passionate about. Find something that you love. And that totally resonates to me. I love podcasting. I love helping other people. I love doing the work I do now. I love being a crisis worker, counselor, all those things. That is what feeds my soul. I also love being a mom and doing things with my kids. That feeds my soul. I love my family time. I make sure to include that into my daily life, even if my weekly life, if I can't do it daily. Going and spending time with my mom, going shopping, whatever it is I need to do with my siblings, whatever it is that you need, make sure that you do it. It's something that you love, that you are passionate about. My cousin's 28 or 29, and she just learned how to skateboard with her husband. That is so cool. Learn new things and be passionate about them, and then do them. Take a minute. It's okay. Like I said, use that to take a minute for yourself and take that break that you need and do what you love. And I promise if you do that, you are going to feel so much better in your mental health and your physical health, and your trauma and everything is literally going to be compacted down because you are going to feel so good. During quarantine especially, keep in touch with your loved ones. This is, obviously with things lifting now, at least in Utah, things are starting to open again, and we're allowed to get together and have get-togethers and things like that. But during quarantine, it was hard. I'm Hispanic. I'm a Latina. We have a big family. Tamika is Polynesian, big family. We are used to being with our families. And so it was so hard to like not see my family all the time. So we did this thing where we did Zoom, like a group Zoom once a week with my whole family. And it was just seriously so fun. And it just keeps you connected and makes you remember that like you're not alone, that even though you can't necessarily see them right now, they're only a phone call away. I had a couple wine nights over the Zoom with my girls. Like we did a couple of those and it was so fun and relaxing. So yeah, keep in touch with your loved ones. Super important. It kind of goes with the getting therapy thing, but ask for help. It is okay to go to a support group if you need to. There's virtual ones, there's in-person ones, there's lots of different things. Reach out on social media. Me, Candle in a Dark Room, We Are Her. We are just a couple of examples of some great self-help people that know, like resources, that's what I'm looking for. We are great resources to come to if you need help. You know, hey, do you guys know who I could talk to about this? Or do you guys have a number for a crisis line or whatever it is? Like, ask us. We will help you anytime, any day. Over the support lines, like I said, there's crisis lines, 24 hours. There's so many different resources for help 24 hours a day. So use them, reach out. It's okay. Don't feel ashamed. Like this right now, especially, this is the time to do that. So like I said, kind of goes with the exercising thing, self-love, accept who you are, what you've been through, and love yourself for it. That is what I've had to learn with healing through my trauma. I hated myself for so many years. I hated who I was from the inside out. I couldn't stand my reflection, like inside and out. And I think because I took what happened to me and I made it my identity. And I shouldn't have. That's not my identity. That's not who I am. I am not a victim. I am a survivor of somebody who's been through some really traumatic shit. And I have nothing to be ashamed for. You know, like I said, that interview I released today on my podcast, she was shamed for her story. Don't let people shame you for your stories. You know, she finally had to look herself in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of who I am, what I've been through. And there's nothing that anybody can do about it. Like, I love who I am. You know, a lot of times people ask me like what I would change. And honestly, I can never really truly answer that question, because even though I wouldn't want anything like this to happen to anybody else or anybody I know, I'm okay with my story. It took me a long time to say that, but I'm okay with my story because it made me who I am. I am a survivor. I'm strong. I've been through, if I can get through what I went through, I can literally get through anything. You know, my dad just died. My story is still not over. There's still a lot more that's happening. But again, it's not my identity. I'm Desi and I make my own identity, and I need to learn to love myself and love who I am when I see myself in the mirror. So if you can love yourself and truly work on that, and don't get me wrong, I have my days where I'm like, ooh, you know, I'm not loving myself today. And that's okay. But do the work to figure out how to love yourself again. Find out who you were before your trauma and love that person. Love the person that you were before and love the person that you are now, because it changed you. And it's okay to say that. And I remember saying that to my friend Keelan, who did the interview today. I told her, you are going to be changed forever. And I remember her looking at me and being like, wait, what? Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. You are changed forever. We're never going to be the same people that we were, but that's okay if you're going to learn from everything that you've been through and you can grow from it. So again, love yourself. The last thing is to care for others. Like I said a minute ago, doing this with you guys, doing this with my podcasters and my followings and my one-on-one healing through trauma coaching that I'm doing and all of that stuff, that is what keeps me going. That is what my goal and purpose is. That's what I believe my purpose is. Being a mom, taking care of my kids, that is my purpose in life. Take care of others, and I promise you will feel amazing. So take care of yourself first, always. You always have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, but then you care for others and you will feel so good. You know, I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, but what I want you guys to remember from today. So biggest thing is, again, trauma affects everyone, whether it's your personal trauma or it's secondary trauma. It affects everyone. It took a slap in the face for me to realize that. I would get so frustrated when my mom would be like, oh, when that happened to us, or when our life changed, things like that. And I remember like kind of being bitter about it and being like, why are you saying that? Like, you didn't go through anything, and kind of like being angry about it. But then I had to like realize, and it took me doing this podcast to realize, like, my family has been through everything with me. Yeah, they weren't abused, but they had been through the process of seeing it after. They've lost their house. They've lost their husband, their dad, their friend, whatever it was. And yeah, obviously it's a good thing because he wasn't a good person. But the point is that their lives flipped upside down, and it's okay for them to feel traumatized from that. So again, trauma affects everyone. It is so important to be trauma informed for everybody, because so that way you know what to look for and how to help if you're ever in the situation. If somebody comes up to you and tells you, like I told my teacher, hey, this is what's happening, believe, do the research, and get them help. It's not your job to go and fix the situation, but it's your job to get the person the help that they need. Mental health is hard. Mental health is hard for everybody. Again, it's hard for families. It's hard for spouses. It's hard for friends, siblings, everybody. And obviously it's hard for those of us that are going through it. It is a everyday battle to deal with mental health. Even though I, for the most part, am under control, I still have my days where I'm super depressed and have to literally force myself to get out of bed. I have to text my girls and be like, hey, I'm having a really hard day. And they know, like, okay, she's in a bad funk today. It's okay to be in those moments, but mental health is hard and it's draining to deal with. But at the same time, there's so much hope. There's so much hope in mental health, and it's getting better every day. And yeah, unfortunately, some people are still struggling. And I know 3 people who have committed suicide during this pandemic, and it's terrifying and it's horrible. And I just want people to know that it's okay to have those hard days, but that is when you go and you reach for help and you ask for help. Even if you feel like you're in the darkest of darkness, I always tell people, look for literally, like, picture yourself in a dark room, okay? Like if you're at night and the lights are off and it's pitch black. If you look hard enough, okay, that light, there's a hallway night light down there, or there's a speck of light coming out in from outside, or whatever it is. Find that light, and that is the light that is going to guide you through everything that you've been through. Find the light, have hope, keep climbing. It's going to be hard to get out of that darkness. It's going to be a workout, and you're going to have to work for it, and you're going to have to climb, and you're going to run out of breath, and you're going to have your days where you feel like you're exhausted and you're done. But just keep fighting, and I promise, and I can say this from experience, that when you get to the other side of it, it is the most amazing feeling to be on top of that mountain and say that you made it and that you did it. Again, even though it's not completely over, and you're going to have those days where it gets a little dark again, but now you know the tools that if you keep going, you can get through it. Let's see. Find your voice. That's another thing. If you have been through trauma, find your voice. Write in your journal. Contact somebody if you want to tell them your story, if you haven't told it to anybody. Tell it in a podcast. Even just, like I said, writing it in a journal. You don't have to go and announce it to the world, but just talking about it. Use your voice and take your power back. These people took our future. Our perpetrators took our future, but do not let them take your past. They've taken enough. Take your voice, use your voice, and take your power back. That is up to you. And, I believe that the whole thing of healing through trauma, yeah, we've all been through some major crap, but it's still our choice whether or not we're going to let it kill us or not, whether or not we're going to let it win. And that is where you have to just keep fighting. If you can, take your power back, and you can feel that confident of taking your power, that is what's going to help get your mental health on track. That is what's helped me. Looking, at myself in the mirror and being like, you know what? He took my childhood, but he won't take my future. I'm going to fight for me. That is the best feeling, and that is what keeps me going every day. Fighting for myself, fighting for my husband, fighting for my kids. I won't let him affect them like he's affected me. But again, I had to make that decision to do that and to fight for that. you know, you'll feel, if once you use that voice, and also you'll feel so much more confidence. You'll feel so much confidence, and you'll feel so strong. And you just, honestly, it's the best feeling of feeling like I can literally kick anything's butt right now. So yeah, just make sure that you reach out to people. You know, I feel like there's people that we don't even realize are struggling right now, but be a voice for not only yourself, but for them. Be a voice for other people, because you never know who's going to need one. Contact me. I'm a public speaker. If you want me to come, I speak at colleges, conferences, rehabilitation centers, group homes, whatever. Contact me. I would love to come and speak at anything that you want me to speak at. You can contact me for advocacy work. I go to court with victims and help them face their perpetrators in court, and look their perpetrator in the eye and basically say, you won't take my future, and you're going to pay for what you did to me. That is what my purpose is in the advocacy work I do. Contact me for resources and or support. You know, again, you just need to talk and say, hey, you know what, Des, I'm feeling really crappy today. I just kind of need someone to like cope with, or I need someone to vent to. I say someone to vent with, and somebody to kind of give me some coping skills and tell me things to do. And so, yeah, I would love to talk to you. You can email me at candleindarkroom@gmail.com. Instagram, please follow me if you aren't. I am at candleindarkroom on Instagram and Facebook. And then we are in the process of a website. It'll be up very shortly, which will be www.candleindarkroom.com. And you can, like I said, reach out for anything. I would love to be a support for you guys and anything that you need. So that being said, I am going to answer any questions that anybody has. So go ahead and let me know what you guys have. Questions about my story, questions about, let me see, where? There's also a thing that at the bottom that says Q&A, and you can put the questions there. But yeah, I would love to just answer anything you guys have. I hope you guys got a lot of information today. Like I said, if you kind of want some of the information that I have and know, just DM me and I can send you some of the screens that I took and I wrote up. So this is just stuff that I know personally from my own experience and from being a professional in this field as well. Let's see. Q&A, 2 questions. Okay. You mentioned how we should work on our cortical brain. What are specific self-care healing modalities we can use for that part of the brain? So I'm going to go back to that so we can, oops, hold on 1 second. Let me look at that thing really quick. I wrote everything down. Okay, so, you know, this part of the brain is the one that is where we self-harm and do all of those things, our self-esteem issues. The biggest thing, like I said, is therapy. I believe that therapy is a huge one for this, because you're kind of working on you and what the problem with like your self-esteem is. You need to work on having confidence in yourself, the worthlessness, all of those things. Again, here's where you really you need to implement self-care, finding things that you're passionate about, everything like that. The part where it is like executive dysfunction, inadequate problem solving, remembering and recalling info. Honestly, with those things, it's kind of, you just have to do the work. Like I write notes to myself if I need to remember to do something. I set reminders on my phone. I just kind of do anything I need to do. Also, meditating and praying, for me, I'm a prayer. That's huge. It helps ease my mind. It helps me kind of take a step back and focus on what I need to focus on in that moment. It helps me kind of get everything organized and back to where I need to be. So yeah, like I said, and also that's what EMDR and tapping does as well. That affects the cortical brain. Working on those spots of your nervous system, it helps that a ton. So yeah, definitely try those. Jennifer Baldwin said, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It was incredibly powerful and gives me so much hope. Thank you, Jennifer. I mean, that makes me just like puts a smile in my heart, because that's all I want in all of this is for all of you, all of us, for survivors to know, like, you're going to make it. If you just hold on and you just like have hope and you just hang on, I promise there is light at the end of all of it. And it's not just going to be a little speck. That's what's going to help guide you out. But when you find that light, it is going to be like a ring light. It's going to be glorious and it's going to be bright and it's going to be worth it. I promise. So just keep hanging on. Reach out to me. I would love to help you in any way as well. Mark Steenberger said, how far do you travel for speaking, for example, Midwest? I travel anywhere. I'm going to Texas. I've traveled as far as New York. So if you want me to come out, just let me know and I would love to. Let me see what else. Okay, Lisa said, I'm trying to find the courage to share my story like you have, but thinking about doing so gives me a lot of anxiety. How do you move through that? How can I open up on social media? I'm confident, but when it comes to this part of my life, I only share with friends and certain family. I think I'm afraid of the stigma and not having a strong enough voice. First of all, I love that question. I think this is such an important question. Try to figure out how to answer it the best though. So honestly, the biggest thing I can tell you about sharing your story is just do it. Take that leap of faith and literally just do it. Reach out to me. I would love to interview you for a podcast. You can listen to it and decide if you want to post it or not, or send it to a few people. Like that's totally up to you. But yeah, you don't have to do it alone. You don't need to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go sit in a room and tell my whole story and record it and then just send it out. No, you can do it with somebody who's going to support you and be there with you. I would love to be that person. If not, go to a loved one, have them sit with you and be like, hey, I need to talk about this. I think I'm ready to share my story. And then go through the steps. You don't have to go on social media and tell your story at on the rooftop. Like, you don't have to do it that way. That's the way I chose to do it. But a lot of people don't, and that's okay. Just telling some of the friends and the family you have told is already like huge. Like that's such a big step. But if you really feel like something's pulling you to do it, just do it, Lisa. Just take a leap of faith and just like do it. Like I said, DM me. I would love to help you and help guide you through that. I'm confident, but when it comes to this part of my life, I share certain family, I think I'm afraid of the stigma. So the stigma, honestly, excuse my French, but screw the stigma. Like first of all, I'm kind of like we talked about, I'm kind of rebellious anyway. And I'm just like, you know what? You think there's a stigma. I'm going to show you, so honestly, the stigma, like I get it, but now with Me Too and all of the different people that are coming out and having their voice, now is the time. Now is the time to find that confidence in yourself and to fight the stigma. The only way the stigma is going to change is if people like you and me change it. And if people like you and me use our voices. So you have a strong enough voice, Lisa. You do. You just have to find it and let's use it. So Dolly Lovato. And I thought it was Demi Lovato and I was going to be really happy. I'm still really happy, but I was really thinking it was Demi Lovato for a minute. Okay. Anyway. How has trauma manifested I lost it. Oh, how has trauma manifested your roles as a mother? What do you do when your child triggered you? Okay, so this is a really good one. We did an episode that is called When Mommy Can't See Me, She Can't Protect Me. What episode is that? 3? I believe it's episode 3 of season 1. When Mommy Can't See Me, She Can't Protect Me. That kind of goes into pretty deep of how I deal with it. I'm pretty open with my kids, not about like rape or anything like that, but they are very aware of people will hurt you. This world is not a great place. Like you have to fight for yourself. You have to protect yourself. Mommy and daddy have to protect you. You have to let us protect you. Be honest, all those things. My kids know boundaries of what is not okay to let people touch, what is not okay. I'm very just open and honest with them. My son's 7 and my daughter's 5. He's in the age where he wants to have sleepovers and wants to go hang out at his friends' houses. I'm not that type of parent. I'm sorry. I don't let my kids go to sleepovers. There's a very few people that I trust with my kids. And it's nothing towards other people. It's just what my what's the word I'm looking for? Like my trauma brain, my trauma brain does not let me. So Yeah, I think just being honest and open with your kids, don't sugarcoat. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like, I'm honest, like if there's an Amber Alert that comes up and a girl's been kidnapped, or a little girl was attacked there was a little girl that was attacked by her uncle here in Utah and was killed and this and that. And my son had heard about it from someone at school, and he asked me, and I told him, I said, "Bud, this is exactly why when mom can't see you, she can't protect you. This is why when you want to go to friends' houses, I don't allow it. This is why I don't just let anybody come over," things like that. So again, being open and honest is a huge thing. My kids honestly don't really trigger me. My daughter's 5 right now. So my son's only 7, so they aren't at the age of my abuse yet. So I definitely am expecting that to happen, kind of come up a little bit. But yeah, I don't think that I've had anything major happen.
Where they want to have sleepovers, it's kind of
yeah, just the sleepover thing's a little bit hard because I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I'm trying to protect you. That's sometimes a little triggering because I get frustrated. Also, probably the only thing that triggers me sometimes is I'm really careful with their boundaries. And even though they're kids and innocent and have no idea, I'm very careful about like letting my daughter walk around naked and letting my son, he covers himself when he gets out of the shower. And it's not that like we're naked, don't show your body at all. It's just they need to know the appropriate times. So yeah, those type of things are what trigger me, but not actual like anything major yet. But it's been they're already 5 and 7, so I'm pretty sure we got it under control. But honestly, like for people who have had a child from their perpetrator, that's probably one of the things I can't give full advice on, because that's something that I can't imagine how hard that is. But also, kids are innocent. It's not their fault. And that's probably the biggest thing is to remember is it's not your kids' fault. Even if you're being triggered by them, like love them through it, because if you love them through it, it'll help you. And when something hurts, I always tell people, if you want to heal it, you have to feel it. So if you want to work through that trauma of being triggered by your child or being triggered by your spouse or whatever, feel it, get through it, and you will feel so much better. You're never going to be able to get over your pain. You're never going to be able to ignore it and just like sweep it under the rug. You have to get through it to heal from it. You have to feel it to heal through it. So, okay, let's see. Such great advice. Thank you. Sorry. I knew I saw another one, but I'm trying to find it, guys. Sorry. Okay, here we go. How were you able to rebuild your relationship with your mom? My parents are my abusers, and boundaries have been incredibly important to me to start processing what has happened to me. And sorry, I don't have my glasses on, guys. And I don't have faith that I'll ever have the relationship I want with them because of their mental health. It's encouraging to see how you were still able to remain a close relationship with your mom after everything that happened. Yeah, so we talk about it in that one too? About with my mom and my relationship? Which one is it where we talk about that?
I don't even know.
I think it's that one too with my mom. I think it's the same one about if my mom can't see you, she can't protect you. Oh no, it's the one with her and Val. What's that one called?
Let's see.
Sorry, we're trying to figure it out. But anyway, I get that question a lot, and that's
Don't label me.
Don't label me. I'm sorry. Go to the episode, Don't Label Me. My mom is actually on that episode with me, and we talk a little bit about it. But honestly, the biggest thing is I had to, first of all, it wasn't her that did this to me. She swears on everything that she never knew what happened. And I had to believe her. I have to believe her. If I sit there and say, well, are you sure you didn't know? Are you sure, whatever, then it's just going to kill me. I'm just going to kill myself over it. And so the biggest thing is I had to remember that she's not the one that actually hurt me. Even though she was there and she had an impact on me, I really just had to forgive. Like, I had to forgive her. I had to forgive her for the pain that she was going through. And that's the thing with your parents. It's hard because if they are both your abusers, and that's, really hard, but you have to get to the point where you can forgive them enough to move on. Because I will say that until you can get to that spot of forgiveness, you'll never be able to reconcile that relationship fully. My dad and I, before he died, that was our goal for the last couple, few years as we worked on our relationship. I had a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness towards him. And this is before we knew he was sick. And I am so grateful that we got to the point where we were, because if he would have passed away and we had that tension, then that would have been a lot harder. But I also will say, don't push it if you don't feel safe. You want to make sure that you do that if you're feeling safe. If they're still the same people and they're still toxic, you also, as a survivor, you can't allow that in your life. So it's really hard to kind of balance the two. My mom and I went to therapy when I was in rehab. She took it like a punching bag. I mean, I told her I hated her. I told her it was her fault. I threw things at her. I mean, I think about it, it makes me want to cry because I was so mean to her. But she knew, like she says that she just took it and just would cry when she'd leave, but she would just take it because she knows as a parent that she made a mistake, but she also tried the best she could. And that's where I had to forgive her, is I know she tried the best she could. She worked her butt off for us. And so I had to forgive her and move on from that. So my mom is actually my best friend. Like my mom and I do everything together. I saw her today. Like I can't imagine my life without her. But again, my dad wasn't in my life for a long time. So I get both of those situations because I have had both. So yeah, it's honestly just kind of feeling how you feel and feel like it's a good, healthy place for you to be in to work on that. If it is, then just try a little bit at a time. Even if you talk to them on the phone a little bit at a time, just try to release some of that anger that you still have and that hurt. Sorry, I'm just reading. And you want one with them, which is amazing. That's a step in the right direction, is you know what you want. You know you want that relationship. So if you are craving that and you feel like you need that, then just go for it. Just try and go for it. Anais said, I struggle with who I am because of the sexual abuse started so young. I feel I never got to be me. What should I hold on to? I know God has me standing. I need to do it myself, for me and not by myself. I honestly, that's a hard one. It's not a hard one. It's an easy one. I'm just trying to figure out how to articulate it. I don't remember who I was before my abuse. So honestly, I can't tell you to hold on to who you were, because you might not, I mean, that person is probably gone. Instead of holding on to what was, go to what could be. Go to what you are now. Go to what you could be after everything that happened to you. Like I said earlier, look yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, you know what? They took this from me. I'm going to take that power back, and I'm going to love who I am and love who I am now. So don't sit there and say what I could have been, what I was, this and that. Love who you are now. That's what's going to get you through it, is by accepting who you are now and loving her. And it's okay that old Anais is gone. Unfortunately, we can't get her back, but you can be better because of it. You, like I said before, I don't know who I would have been, the type of person I would have been if I wouldn't have been through what I went through. So what I've been through has humbled me, and I appreciate that. Anything else? Anybody else? I got quite a bit of questions. Thank you for sharing your story and for all the great insights. Appreciate you all for what you're doing and to support others. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm just making sure I got everybody. Okay, I think I got everybody's questions. I'll wait a couple more seconds, and if anything comes up, I'll answer. Also, I will, if anyone didn't make it to watch the whole thing, just message us or DM us and we can send you the video if you missed the beginning or something. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Again, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in with me today. I hope to do this again with you all. follow my page, like I said, at Candle in the Dark Room. I would love to get to know you guys and get to know your stories and help you through anything that you need help with. I appreciate you guys. I love you, and I hope to talk to you guys again.